These are some of my friends.
Hey, friends.
They're going to help out. You know Chris. This is one of my favorite guys in the world. He's Jake's brother-in-law. His wife and Jake's wife, Janessa, are sisters.
Oh.
And his wife, Jelena, is the one who painted our pupa here, the painting. It's hand-painted by her.
Oh, wow.
Done for Jacob's wedding. And so she's in the on that room, she'll be in. And this is Rico, everybody.
Hi.
Hi. Welcome.
And his wife's name is Jelena. Jelena's the one that painted it. So Rico and Jelena. And Rico's going to help us out on percussion. Chris is going to help us out on guitar. And Jake is helping us out getting here. Getting here. Okay, here we go. Song of Good News. Okay. Open your ears, God's chosen people. Open your ears and hear good news. Open your hearts, O royal priesthood. God has come to you. God has come to you. God has spoken to his people. Hallelujah. And his words are words of wisdom. Hallelujah. God has spoken to his people. Hallelujah. And his words are words of wisdom. Hallelujah. No faster. He who has ears to hear his message. He who has ears and let him hear. He who would learn the way of wisdom. Let him hear God's word. Let him hear God's word. God has spoken to his people. Hallelujah. And his words are words of wisdom. Hallelujah. God has spoken to his people. Hallelujah. And his words are words of wisdom. Hallelujah. Israel comes to greet Messiah. Judah is glad to see his day. From east and west the people travel. He will show the way. He will show the way. God has spoken to his people. Hallelujah. And his words are words of wisdom. Hallelujah. God has spoken to his people. Hallelujah. And his words are words of wisdom. Hallelujah. Again. God has spoken to his people. Hallelujah. And his words are words of wisdom. Hallelujah. God has spoken to his people. Hallelujah. And his words are words of wisdom. Hallelujah. All right. Rico's going, what tempo is it going to be? Oh, it's going to be all tempos. A lot of tempos.
I'm watching what he's doing.
Yeah, he's a good listener,
Good luck.
good player.
Or it says good
Sometimes you
luck.
just have to have that presence about you to figure out where things are going. This is going to be right here. 1, 2, 3. Behold, God is my salvation. I will trust and will not be afraid. For the Lord my God is my strength and my song. He also has become my salvation. For the Lord my God is my strength and my song. He also has become my salvation. La 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 la. Another week. Craziness. Okay, so this is going down the road in the station wagon with a bunch of kids from youth group and singing these songs. Oh, we did this around the popcorn campfire, right? So that was this. I will call upon the Lord.
Hello, good evening.
Good
evening.
How is everyone tonight?
Good.
Well, you're better after that, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very nice, guys. So far, so good. I'm reminded of some of us stay up to watch Seth Meyers. And Seth Meyers is very funny. And here's the funny thing he does. Every single night, on purpose, he said, well, we have this guest, and we have this guest, and we have this going on. You've come on a good night, he says to the audience. No matter who's on, you've come on a good night. And I'm going to say, we've come on a good night.
Amen.
Good evening. It's handy for a lot of different purposes. All right, many, many things to look at. We're not going to look at all of them. Havdalah and game night is next Saturday, starting at 7. Bring your games, bring food. It's really low-key. It's nice. There is no wagering, and there's no fist fights as far as I know. So,
Not yet.
okay, not yet. Don't be the first one. This week, starting on Tuesday, you have the fabulous opportunity to take a course in the Minor Prophets. I believe I asked you last week. I did not ask you to name all of the Minor Prophets, but I did say how many of the prophets are known as the Minor Prophets, and that's not because they're not important. They're extremely important, but it's because they're short. So there's a bunch of them. Anybody got that answer yet? Well, if you come on Tuesday, I'm sure we'll cover that that evening. That's at 7:30. It's in the Bayside room right here.
15.
No? Thank you. Nice try. No. That was a good idea, but it's not quite right. All right, and a certain person will not be starting theirs until September because, you know, we're busy and important. And we have to go places and see people and not you. So he's going to start in September, but I start on this Tuesday. You're entitled to go for 2 free classes and to see if you want to sign up after that. There are other classes that go on for the seminary, but they are more along the lines of if you want to take a course, there will be a date to be announced for you and any other students. I don't know how many weeks I've said this, but the Orchelash family directory is still in the foyer. We don't know. We don't know which moment will be chosen. It's sort of like waiting for, you know, the Lord to return. It's like any moment, family directory will be taken away and there is no more chance. All right, now, on to, you know, there's good news and bad news. I don't know if you want to classify, we need repairs and we need replacements of our physical property to make sure that we can enjoy our services. And this is a whole long, many, many words. But the comeuppance that's new and different is that we have a pledge of matching funds for up to $6,000. In other words, if y'all raise $6,000, that fund will kick in and we would get $12,000. So it's like 2 for 1. And that is a very, very happy thing because, you know, repairs mount up. I believe John mentioned to me tonight how much have we already, we started to ask you about this, and within the last week we've gotten how much?
1/3 of the way.
1/3 of the way.
Nice.
We've already gotten $2,000, which really means we've gotten $4,000. See how that works? It's way better than interest. It's great. So anyway, if that is encouraging to you, it should be. It's encouraging to us. But this is a real deal, and you can read all the stories about it. We have a roof leak up in the Shabbat school room, up on the 2nd floor of that portion of the building, not in here yet. Okay, and yeah, in the rain, plus, you know. Also, our building insurance went down, but we have to replace this air conditioner. So those are the special things that we need to make a lot more money on and still maintain our weekly giving, because we have expenses whether or not any of these break down. All right. Anything else I can tell you? No, well, you're here on a good evening. It's nice when we have special music, and we do. It helps us, I think, to be more motivated in our worship, because the type of worship we do, I don't know if you've noticed it or not, can be very, I'm going to use the big word, stultifying. Stultifying means it's there, it's happening, and you're just sort of half listening and half participating. It sort of freezes you because you're used to it. And so tonight is a good time to be able now to listen with fresh ears, to be able to really think about the words that we're singing rather than just putting them through in a rote fashion. And I think that is always a good thing to do. Don't forget, high holidays are coming up sooner rather than later. And this is the time during which we have the opportunity to consider what has been going on in our lives for the past year. This is when we stop and take stock. Well, doesn't that mean you're emphasizing all the sin and you don't want to do that? No. That means that we are being as serious about our lives as the Lord is. And if the Lord thinks that sin is a serious problem, which he does, then we ourselves need to be able to look at ourselves and see how we've been helping ourselves or how we have not been helping ourselves. Fair enough? So those are the kinds of things, when you get a free moment, either tonight during the service or during the week, it's a good time to consider these things. Thank you for coming. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. I want to build on that for just a minute. And that is that we have a certain series of appointments with God. We get to have an appointment with God every week on Shabbat. And so as we're about to light the Shabbat lights in just a moment, or a few moments actually, it gives us a moment to slow down and see things differently. We have several yearly appointments with God. One of the most serious of them is the one that Dr. Patrice just mentioned. That's Yom Kippur, when we take stock, beginning with Rosh Hashanah. Now let me change that. When we take stock, beginning with last Friday night, which was the beginning of the month, we take stock in just where's our relationship with God and what needs to be changed, improved, refreshed, rejuvenated. You pick your term that fits best. That set of appointments is coming up very quickly. Now that has all been part of the way in which we as Jews and those who've joined with us have interacted and encountered God down through the ages. And we have, as part of that, established certain traditions or patterns in the way in which we do this. In some of the most traditional circles among us, even to this day, this particular set of services, as all of our services, is done without instrumentation. But even among some of our more traditional friends, for example, the largest Orthodox synagogue in New York City, a handful of years ago began to incorporate instruments in their service. The largest conservative synagogue on the West Coast is the one that inaugurated something called Friday Night Live, and we play some of their music, which they use as part of their service, before our services. Because we have come to understand, and I've said this before, that within Judaism conceived classically, down through the ages by the rabbis, there is an inherent built-in flexibility to develop and to grow. And that's why we have the grand variation that is found within Judaism, not only in our country, but around the world. And we're going to explore some of that variation and some of the development of that tradition tonight. As you will see, we have an enlarged group up front who will help us to more personally interact vocally with the traditions of worship as we go through them this evening. So please, make sure you enter into it fully, and because they're up front, you're sitting here, that doesn't mean they're entertainment. And you are the concert goers. It means they are there to help all of us more fully enter into the experience with God that we get to encounter this evening. So that being said, by way of introduction, and he left his order of service over here, so hang on a second. I propped it on the really big pillow so I wouldn't miss it. And of course, I did. All right, if you'll rise, facing the door, as we begin our service with L'Chadodi. L'Chadodi is a traditional way in which we welcome Shabbat, and one of the traditions is we literally welcome Shabbat as we stand and eagerly anticipate Shabbat to enter through those doors. Please do note, as we respond on pages 14 to 25, some of the wonderful imagery that's associated with Shabbat, a good portion of it related to the coming of the Messiah. Pages 14 to 25, Jacob and the gentleman lead us, and we respond with them.
L'Chadodi l'Chad Kala B'nei Shabbat Nekavena L'Chadodi l'Chad Kala B'nei Shabbat Nekavena
Come, my friend, meet the bride. Let's welcome the presence of the Sabbath.
Observe and remember, in a single statement, the unique God caused us to hear his command. He alone is Lord, and his name is unique to his fame and splendor and praise. Together, come, my friend, meet the bride. Let's welcome the presence of the Sabbath. Let's go to meet the Sabbath, for she is the source of blessing from the beginning, anointed from ancient days, though made last, conceived first. Come, my friend, meet the bride. Let's welcome the presence of the Sabbath. Wake up, your light is come. Arise, shine, awake, awake. Sing a grand song. The glory of God is revealed to you. Come, my friend, meet the bride. Let's welcome the presence of the Sabbath.
You may be seated. That last verse was preceded by a verse which says, Jesse's son the Bethlehemite draws near, bringing us redemption. And then the response becomes, wake up, your light is come. Appropriately setting the stage for the lighting of the Shabbat lights, which are in fact two things. Number one, the guarantee that our relationship with our God is permanent, and that there's coming a time when his light will in fact function as the light of the world in the days of the Messianic age and the coming of the Messiah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed art thou, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has set us apart by your commandments and has commanded us to light the candles for Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehayot or legoyim, V'natan lanu Yeshua Meshachenu Ha'or La'olam. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who has sanctified us by your commandments and has commanded us to be a light for the nations and has given us Yeshua the Messiah, the light of the world. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Arise, shine, your light has come. Or Tehillah Habrit Chadashah, picking up on the blessings, both the traditional and the Messianic, over the Shabbat lights, reminds us, in the very words of the prayers that have been said in synagogues around the world down through the centuries, God has come and has redeemed his people. That's our response at this particular point in time, pages 136 and 137 at the bottom. Using the words of the daily prayers, we now respond to God to remind us that he has come and has redeemed his people. The text begins, Baruch Adonai Elohei Yisrael, ki pakad et amo, vayishlach lo padut, vayarem lanu kerem Yeshua b'beit David avdo. Together,
Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, because he has come and has redeemed his people. He has raised up a horn of salvation for us in the house of his servant David, as he said through his holy prophets of long ago, salvation from our enemies and from the hand of all who hate us, to show mercy to our fathers and to remember his holy covenant, the oath he swore to our father Abraham, to rescue us from the hand of our enemies and to enable us to serve him without fear, in holiness and righteousness before him all our days.
he has raised up a horn of salvation, Kerem Yeshua, in the house of his servant David. That one who is the horn of salvation, the answer to our prayers through the ages, sits now on one of those heavenly thrones that the prophets of old, the sages of old, the rabbis of the past, envisioned. He sits there in the place of authority, and we now come and acknowledge his authority and thank him for what he's done for us. Pages 40 and 41, that scene is Elohim Asher.
Elohim Asher Diber, Mikadem Pe'amim Rabot, Uvitrakim Rabot El God spoke to our fathers through the prophets at many times in various ways. But now, in the end of days, he has spoken to us by the Messiah, his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things, and through whom he made the universe. The Son is the full radiance of God's glory and the flawless manifestation of his reality. He sustains all things by his powerful word. After he made atonement for sins, he sat down in the place of authority beside the majesty of heaven. True and firm, established and lasting, right and faithful, loved and treasured, desired and pleasant, feared and mighty, ordered and acceptable, good and beautiful is this word to us forever and ever.
He sits there, waiting for the time of his return. We await that return as well. But we're not going to sit here. We're going to stand for the Amidah portions this evening, the abridged in summary. And in the abridged, we ask that we would get to see the lengthening of the light of the Messiah in our days. So make those words your response and your anticipation as we turn and face Jerusalem, the direction of the ark, and use these words to express our anticipation and appreciation. Pages 60 to 63. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Ha'el HaGadol HaGabor VaHaNorah, El Elyon, Kanei Shemayim Va'aretz. Blessed are you, O Lord our God. You're the God of our ancestors, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah. You are the great, the mighty, the revered God. You are the Most High God, who is master of heaven and of earth.
He, with his word, was a shield to our forefathers, and by his voice will raise the dead. The holy God, like whom there is none, who gives rest to his people on his holy Sabbath day, because he delights in them to grant them rest. Before his presence we will serve with fear and awe. Daily and constantly we will thank him with the appropriate praises. He is the God to whom thanksgiving is due, the Lord of peace, who hallows the Sabbath and blesses the seventh day, and in holiness gives rest to a people filled with delights in remembrance of the creation.
And so our God and God of our ancestors, do accept our rest. Hallow us by your commandments, and grant our portion in your Torah. Satisfy us with your goodness, gladden us with your salvation, purify our hearts to serve you truthfully. And in your love and favor, O Lord our God, let us inherit your holy Sabbath. And may Israel, who sanctify your name, rest thereon. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. We just got finished praying. Before his presence we will serve with fear and awe. Daily and constantly we'll thank him with the appropriate praises. As you take your seats now, we will thank him with the appropriate praises, this time responding with half Kaddish, pages 4 to 7.
יתגדל ויתקדש מרבה ועמד יברקי חוצאי וימליך מלכוצאי בחיי כל יום וכל חיי לכל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יאש מרבה מבורך לעולם עולם ועולם יתברך וישבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו לאלה לאלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה לעם ואורן בעלמה ואמרו Amen. Let his name be glorified and sanctified throughout the universe which he created according to his purpose. May he bring about the reign of his kingdom in your lifetime, in your days, and in the lifetime of all the house of Israel, speedily, soon, and let all say, Amen. Let his great name be praised forever and ever, eternally. Blessed and praised, glorified and exalted, extolled and honored, magnified and lauded be the name of the Holy One, blessed be he. Although he is far greater than all blessings, hymns, praises, and songs which are offered in the world, and all say, Amen. Amen.
He's far greater than all blessings, hymns, praises, and songs which are offered in the world. In other words, it raises a question for us. Jacob will lead us in, and then we will respond to him. Mikamoka, where or who is there like you, O Lord, among the gods? Pages 44 and 45 is that response. And it sets the stage by saying, praise our exalted God. Blessed is he who is to be blessed. Moses and the people of Israel sang this song to you with great joy. And as they all said so, now we also join in that song. Who is like you, O Lord, among the gods together? Who is like you, glorious in holiness, awesome in praises, doing wonders?
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, לא רב תהילות עושה פלא.
And of course, we know the answer to that question we just raised. The answer is Ein Kamoka. Truly, there is none like you, O Lord our God. Awesome in praises, doing wonders. That becomes our response now as we stand and join on pages 88 and 89. There is none like you, O Lord among the gods, glorious in holiness, awesome in praises, doing wonders.
אין כמוך באלים אדוני, אין כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא, עושה פלא. There is none like you among the gods, my Lord, and there is nothing that compares to your deeds. Your kingdom is a kingdom that endures for all eternity, and your sovereignty extends throughout all generations. Adonai Melech, Adonai Malach, Adonai Melech Leolam Vaed. The Lord reigns, the Lord has reigned, the Lord shall reign throughout eternity. The Lord will bless his people with peace.
The Lord shall reign throughout eternity. He needs to also reign throughout our lives. That is what we acknowledge. We affirm that he is the one who will reign over us as we face Jerusalem now and respond appropriately with the words of the Shema, pages 34 to 39. You, O Lord, and you, O Lord, alone are the king over my life.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך ביום על לבבך, ושננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשעתך ובקרבך, ובשרתם לראות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בעיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. Blessed be he whose glorious kingdom is eternal. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your life, and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as reminders on your hands, and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the doorframes of your houses and on your gates.
What we have affirmed, the world in fact will affirm sometime, hopefully in the very near future, as pages 88 and 89 looks forward to with Va'iv and Soah. It's the time when from Zion will go forth the Torah and the word of the Lord out of Jerusalem. Jacob leads, we respond.
ויהי בנשוא אהרון ויאמר משה קום אדוני ויפוצו אויביך וינוסו משנאיך מבניך. כי בציון תצא תורה, כי בציון תצא תורה, ולדבר אדוני בירושלים. ברוך שנתן תורה תורה, ברוך שנתן תורה תורה, לעמו ישראל בקדושתו. And it came to pass, whenever the ark went forward, Moses would say, Arise, O Lord, and let your enemies be scattered. May those who hate you flee from before you. For from Zion shall go forth the Torah, and the word of the Lord out of Jerusalem. Blessed be he who in holiness gave the Torah to his people Israel.
And his people Israel and those who joined together with them, with us, now respond on page 133 to this wonderful gift and treasure that's been granted to us.
The ark now unveils its treasure.
To our eyes and minds and hearts.
Inside the scroll of Torah stands.
It stands there with all its richness and wisdom.
As we listen, voices speak, voices of our ancestors.
Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Joseph and Moses.
O God, they bring us your instructions for us.
Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, and Miriam speak to us as well.
O God, they move us to respond to your promises to us.
We are grateful for your words, the words of Torah.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord calls.
We will hear your words that we may learn them, love them, and live them.
What does the Lord require of you? To fear him, love him, serve him, and walk in all his ways.
All the Lord has said, we will do.
Mi shebarach avotenu Abraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov. He who blessed our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May he bless John. May he bless Matt. May he bless Don. And may he bless Sharon, who have come up to honor God and the Torah. May the Holy One bless them and their families and send blessing and prosperity on all the work of their hands. Baruchu et Adonai hamavorach. Baruch Adonai Haborach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, Asher Bachar banu mikol ha'amim, V'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Bless the Lord who is blessed. Bless the Lord who is blessed forever and ever. Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who chose us from all peoples and gave to us the Torah. Blessed are you, Lord, the giver of the Torah.
It's on, okay. Shoftim v'shotrim titen lecha b'kol sha'arecha asher Adonai Elohecha noten lecha l'shavtecha v'shavtu et ha'am mishpat tzedek lo tateh mishpat lo tachir panim v'lo tachak shochad ki ha-shochad ya'aver einei chachamim v'disalef Davrei Tzedekim. Tzedek, Tzedek, Tirdov. Please be seated. Judges and officers you shall appoint for yourselves, or you shall appoint in all your gates, which Adonai your God is giving to you, tribe by tribe, and shall judge the people with righteous judgment. You shall not wrest judgment or pervert judgment. You shall not be a considerer of persons, or you shall not allow yourself to be biased with someone that you know or care about. You'll be a neutral party. You shall not accept a gift or a bribe, because a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise, and it twists or perverts the words of the righteous. Righteousness you shall pursue. Okay, this is the beginning. Judges and officers sounds very legal. Throw them in jail, give them 30 years to life. And when we think of judgment, we think of severity, and we think of righteous judgment. I think sometimes we think of the severity that comes from the legal system. Tzedek in Judaism is righteousness, and righteousness is not simply punish and destroy the wicked. In fact, the word tzedek is the root for tzedakah, like a tzedakah box where you put in your extra shekels for charity. It's charity. We see a parallel when Abraham had an interaction with the judge of the world, the judge of the universe, God himself, in Genesis 18. And he says, "Shall not the judge of all the earth do right?" He was appealing for mercy on behalf of Sodom and Gomorrah, filled with not so savory characters. And that, I think, is the righteousness that's described here. It's not that we all become doormats and can't ever have our day in court. It's that we should be charitable to one another, and that we should appeal to God for mercy, not only on our own behalf, but on behalf of other people, just as Father Abraham did. It reminds me of, I've been reading in Mishnah 18, which says, take great care in praying the Shema and in praying all of the prayers. Don't allow the praying of your prayers to be routine, but make them honest requests for mercy. Why would we pray for such evil people like Sodom and Gomorrah, as Abraham did? Why would we pray for people who hurt us? Number one, we're all not perfect, but the Lord says, I take no joy in the death of the wicked. And as his Messiah says, excuse me, love your enemy, bless those who curse you, pray for those who spitefully use you. as I was meditating on what to say, it made me think of the piece of liturgy which is coming up shortly, wherein we say, "Arise, O Lord, to your resting place, you and your mighty ark. May those who hate you flee from before you." I don't know that that's necessarily referring only to people, as in cast judgment, severe judgment on them, but it can also be to forces or character traits, as if to say, let wickedness flee from before you, but keep the wicked close to you and allow them to have repentance. May suffering flee from before you, and may you comfort the people who are so recently suffering. May poverty flee from before you, and may you reverse the bad fortunes into good fortunes, in both senses of the term fortune, for people. It also has the sense of righteousness, the entire arc of what we should be doing as Jews and people who've joined with us, that we should be restoring the earth to its Edenic state, wherein not only criminal acts will be outlawed or will not exist, but also suffering and poverty are gone forever. As we interact with the world, in a few places in the Newer Testament it says that God indwells us. As we walk forward, God is going forward in us. May all of those things flee from before him, and may our activities drive those things out, cause people to be better, to right wrongs, and to ease suffering, and to love one another. And that's it. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet b'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who gave us the Torah of truth and life everlasting planted in our midst. Blessed are you, Lord, giver of the Torah.
Truly, he's the one who's given to us the Torah. We acknowledge that, as our ancestors did when they first received it. So as they stood before him, so we now stand before him, and in a sense stand in their sandals, so to speak, as we too now receive these words. The affirmation is pages 98 and 99 of the Zohar Torah, and if you need the transliteration, you'll find that on page 95.
Zot HaTorah Asher Sam Moshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael Al Pi Adonai Ve'ad Moshe. This is the Torah which Moses placed before the children of Israel. It is in accord with the Lord's commands by the hand of Moses.
You may be seated. Haftorah blessings are in pages 94 to 97. It's interesting that the Haftorah portion moves on to conclude with the last paragraph that will be read, with a wonderful description of the Messiah to come and what would take place in his life. Blessings, again, pages 94 to 97.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bacha b'nbiim tovim, ורצה בדבריכם הנאמרים באמת. ברוך אתה אדוני אבותינו בצורה ובמשה עבדו ובישראל עמו ובנביאי האמת בצדק. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who selected good prophets, delighting in their words which were spoken truthfully. Blessed are you, O Lord, who chose the Torah, your servant Moses, your people Israel, and the prophets of truth and righteousness.
I'm reading Isaiah 52, 9, 10, 13 through 15. Break out into joy. Sing together, you ruins of Jerusalem, for Adonai has comforted his people. He has redeemed Jerusalem. Adonai has bared his holy arm in the sight of every nation, and all the ends of the earth will see the salvation of our God. See how my servant will succeed. He will be raised up, exalted, highly honored, just as many were appalled at him because he was so disfigured that he didn't even seem human and simply no longer looked like a man. So now he will startle many nations. Because of him, kings will be speechless, for they will see what they had not been told. They will ponder things they had never heard.
I'm going to be reading
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, האל הנאמן, האומר ועושה, המדובר חיים שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ונאמנים דבריך, ודבריך בדבריך. אחור לא ישוב ריקם כי אל מלך, נאמן ורחמן אתה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הנאמן בכל דבריו. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe, rock of all ages, righteous throughout all generations. You are the faithful God, promising and then performing, first speaking, then fulfilling. For all your words are true and righteous. Faithful are you, O Lord our God, and faithful are your words, for no word of yours shall remain unfulfilled. You are a faithful and merciful God and King. Blessed are you, O Lord God, who are faithful in fulfilling your words. Have mercy on Zion. It is the fountain of our life, and very soon deliver her who grieves deeply. Blessed are you, O Lord, who make Zion rejoice with her children.
And Zion's rejoicing children now respond.
Make us joyful, O Lord our God, with the prophet Elijah, your servant, and with the kingdom of the house of David, your anointed. May Elijah come soon and bring joy to our hearts. Allow no stranger to sit on David's throne or inherit his glory. For by your holy name you swore to him, that his light would not be quenched forever. Blessed are you, O Lord, the shield of David. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen David.
I'm going to be reading Ephesians chapter 5, verse 21 through 33. Also subordinate yourselves to each other out of reverence for Messiah. Wives should respect your own husbands as you would respect the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, much as Messiah is the head of the Messianic community, as he himself serves as the liberator of the body of his followers. But as the Messianic community subordinates itself to Messiah, so should wives in every respect do so for their own husbands. Now you husbands sacrificially love your wives in the same way Messiah loved the Messianic community and gave his life for it. He did this to dedicate it to God, making the community clean through his word as if washed by water. In this way, he is able to present the Messianic community as a bride in all her glory to himself, without stains or wrinkles of any kind, spotless and with no imperfections. In the same way, husbands ought to love their own wives as they love their very own bodies. A man who loves his wife actually loves himself. No one ever hates his own body, but faithfully feeds and takes good care of it, just as the Lord does for the Messianic community. Because we are truly members of his own body, as the scriptures say, for this reason a man leaves his father and mother and unites to his wife, the two become as one. There is a great truth hidden here concerning the Messiah and the Messianic community. Nevertheless, each of you must love his own wife as much as himself, and every wife should respect her husband.
When God speaks, his intention is that our lives be impacted. We affirm that principle when we respond with Etz Chaim on the bottom of those next pages, 96 and 97, that his words are intended to take deep root in our lives, thereby renewing our days. As of old. The as of old is the reference back to the Garden of Eden, so we might walk with God as our ancestors did so many centuries, millennia ago.
Etz Chaim hi lama chazekim ba v'tzom kei ha-meusha terachei ha-darchei noam v'chol tzivotei ha-shalom Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuvu ba Chadesh Yamenu Chadesh Yamenu ki kedem Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuvu ba Chadesh Yamenu Chadesh Yamenu ki kedem. A tree of life it is to those who take hold of it, and happy are those who support it. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Turn us, Lord, to you, and let us return. Renew our days as of old.
With renewed days, with renewed lives, we stand before him yet again as our ancestors did, and I do mean literally stand before him as priests in his temple, and we express our gratitude on pages 98 and 99.
Uvilchol Yomar, Shuva Adonai Rivavot Alfei Yisrael. When the ark rested, Moses would say, Return, O Lord, to the myriads of Israel's families. Arise, O Lord, to your resting place, you and your mighty ark. Clothe your priests with righteousness. May those who have experienced your faithful love shout for joy. For the sake of your servant David, don't delay the return of your Messiah. I give you good instruction. Do not forsake my Torah.
Shabbat school is excused. And as the others are descending from the Bama platform, I want to express my gratitude on behalf of all of you, as well as myself, for the wonderful job done by the musical team this evening. Thank you all. You made our worship that much more meaningful. And we invite you to do this on a more regular basis. Sometime in the early Middle Ages, when I was growing up, thank you, it took a little long for you to get there. Kids being kids, and the microphone reminds me, Jess, would you crank me up just a little more? Because occasionally we have people who, as I turn from one side to the other, who lose track of me, and I don't want to give them that opportunity. Anyhow, when I was growing up, kids being kids, got into fights with each other. And sometimes kids tried to beat the tar, that was the term we used to use, beat the tar out of the other kids. But more commonly, they just tried to get the upper hand, to get on top of the other person, to pin the person down so they couldn't move. And then the kid on top would demand, "Say uncle." Now, although I could never understand it, somehow it was demeaning to say uncle. It was apparently a phrase of abject subjection or servitude. Unfortunately, there are a lot of adults out there who have never grown up. They are still acting like kids. Their relationships with each other are still characterized by those who have the power and or the opportunity going around and demanding, "Say uncle," or "I'm boss." And just about everyone can find someone else to whom they can make the demand, "Say uncle, I'm boss." However, that attitude is totally inappropriate for us as believers. The Rabbi Rav Shaul is very clear in his instructions about this. We are not to dominate and domineer. We're to submit to and serve each other. And it all starts with that all-important principle, and you'll see this in the outline, the all-important principle: to domineer is human, to submit divine. First, some context from last week. going back to verses 18 to 21 of this particular chapter of Ephesians, has to do with the manifestation of the Spirit of God. Verse 21 is quite clear. Also subordinate yourselves to each other out of reverence for the Messiah. That is organically, that is grammatically connected with verses 15 and following. Therefore, it tells us of one of the several results or consequences of being Spirit-filled. In other words, it's an overflow of His fullness. Also then, it lets us know that this is a demonstration, verse 21, that this is a demonstration and evidence, a proof that we really are Spirit-filled. We will subordinate ourselves to each other out of reverence for the Messiah. You see, the fullness of the Spirit is not demonstrated as many seem to think. It's not demonstrated by a miraculous manifestation, but rather by supernatural submission, according to this text. And too often, people who claim to be Spirit-filled lord it over others. They act superior to, they look down on those who just haven't arrived yet. And so they become arrogant and condescending. Let me suggest, according to this text, and we looked at it more carefully last week, that's a direct contradiction, because being Spirit-filled means that we are submitting ourselves to each other. And submission involves a serving attitude. Which raises the question, so why should I? Why should I? Well, we should have, we do have, and we should have the motivation to serve. Verse 21 tells us that as well. And it has to do, as you see it in that verse, with fear or reverence. That's that healthy respect we talked about last week. And it also has to do with, it is for the Messiah. That means we're supposed to remember all He's done for us, and we're to remember His example. And in case you've forgotten that example, and we find this in one of the, I think it's in one of the Tefillah Kadashah portions in the Siddur as well. The rabbi writes in another letter, he says, talking about the Messiah Yeshua, who, Philippians 2, who was in very nature God, yet He did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but He made Himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant and being made in human likeness. And being found in appearance as a human, He humbled Himself further and became obedient to death, even death by crucifixion. That's the example. When He was walking the earth, He said it quite clearly. He says, I haven't come, Mark chapter 10, verse 45, I have not come to be served, but to serve. And elsewhere, we're informed about Him in words very similar to those found in Philippians. This is Hebrews chapter 2, verse 14. Since the children, talking about the children of God, have flesh and blood, He too shared in their humanity, so that by His death He might destroy him who holds the power of death, that is the devil, and free those who all their lives were held in slavery by their fear of death. For surely it's not angels He helps, but Abraham's descendants. For this reason, He had to be made like His brothers and sisters in every way, in order that He might become a merciful and faithful high priest in service to God. And because He Himself suffered when He was tempted, He is now able to help those who are being tempted. In other words, He went through all of that. That's the example that He set, and that should become our motivation to serve. Which raises the question, okay, maybe I'm beginning to get it. So what's involved? Well, we have the meaning of submission. That too is derived from this first verse, verse 21. It's a term that has to do with relationships and responses and responsibilities within those relationships. Now, it does imply something having to do with a subtle ordering in relationships, but far more so this term has to do with responding to needs, responding to the needs of others, adjusting to others. And in fact, when this term is Greek, by the way, and if you were to look at it, in all reality, you should say, well, that looks Greek to me. You knew that was coming, so.
Yes.
I have to throw that out there. Yes, but it's a Greek term that derives from a Hebrew term that has to do with adjusting to others. Adjusting to others, not taking advantage of them, namely fitting in with them. Now, I'm going to do one of my favorite things. I'm going to get grammatical on you. And I know you're not supposed to do that on Shabbat or into a weekend, but this is the first week of school for many, and so welcome to school. This is in something called the middle voice. That's a technical, one of 3 technical voices in the Greek language. But rather than to explain it, let me tell you what the implication is here. It has to do with something that's totally voluntary, it's not enforced. So this instruction here is totally voluntary, it's not enforced. Moreover, that means it implies equality in relationships and suggests that what is going on here needs to be mutual. Equality in relationships, and it has to do with something that's mutual. That's the way in which this is grammatically structured, and it is in fact the meaning of the term itself. Sounds somewhat nebulous? Specifically what's involved? Well, in answer to that question, the rabbi says, Rav Shmuel says, let me give you 3 illustrations of how this principle works itself out in specific relationships. So these relationships can be truly spirit-filled. These are examples of how this is to be lived out in all relationships. So here comes the practical application in the rest of the text. And it has to do with, as you can see, marriage. At which point everybody should have been saying, and they may have been saying when the text was read, uh-oh, we're skating on thin ice. One of my favorite things to do theologically. First, you have a word to the wives. Look at the text. Some translations translate subordinate to submit. Wives are to submit, right? How did they used to go? Wrong. You see, that term is not found in verse 22. I will say it again. That word is not found in the verse, in the text, in verse 22. There is no imperative. In fact, there is no verb. There is nothing related to that. In other words, the rabbi is telling us something very clearly. He's implying that he's going to tell us now, here's how the wife demonstrates mutual submission, equality in relationship. Remember, the structure and the word itself indicated that this is something that's voluntary, not enforced. It has to do with equality and mutuality. So, how is that then demonstrated? Notice the text simply says, and I do mean simply says, as to the Lord, or with our translation here, as you would respect the Lord. In other words, this is something for the Lord and to the Lord, and he will go on to say in a few minutes, in everything, or in every respect, verse 24. Not just when it's convenient or comfortable, not just when it's noticed or noted, but in all areas and circumstances. And then along comes verse 23, which gives us all kinds of problems. Husband is the head of the wife. What's going on here? You should be raising that question when you understand that verse 21 is the verse, in fact, the instruction that overrides everything. So let's explore this. This is usually taken as ruler or authority or as commander-in-chief. But that would stand in stark contrast with the lead verse, verse 21, which has the main verb found within it. The context for this particular term comes from the previous chapter, chapter 4, verses 15 and 16. It talks about Yeshua as the Messiah being the head of his body, and it says, from him the whole body grows and builds itself up. In other words, when this term head is used, it is that which helps produce the growing and building itself up of that particular relationship. That's an entirely different picture than the way in which head is often used. As you explore it further, the term head implies source or origin or motivator, maybe motivator in the sense of energizer or empowerer. Has to do with initiator. It's much like that headwaters of a river. It's from there that the source of energy derives. As one of the more grammatically oriented commentators pointed out, and I'm going to quote him here, a man by name of Robinson, he phrased it this way concerning the function of the head. It's to plan for the safety of the body, to protect it from danger, to provide for its welfare. In other words, end quote. In other words, to promote its interests, to pursue its best. But I want you to notice something very important about verse 24. How does it begin? With a very small word, but. But. This is another interesting grammatical construction here. It's what we call an adversative construction. I'm not going to explain that to you other than to tell you again what the implication is. The implication is that this is pointing to a sharp distinction, a difference. In other words, there's a sharp distinction or difference between the headship of Yeshua and the headship of the husband. It's somewhat similar in the sense of how from him as head, the whole body grows and builds itself up, provides the energy and the atmosphere for growth. And yet it's vastly different because the headship of Yeshua is described in Ephesians chapter 1. We looked at it many, many months ago. As he's over and above every authority and every power that exists on earth. Now, many words for the husbands. Why? Well, as we unfold this, perhaps that'll become clearer. Remember, the overarching and governing instruction for this whole paragraph goes back to verse 21. So it's still subordinate yourselves to each other. So this is now an explanation of how husbands are to work out the principle of mutual submission to their wives. Not lord it over them, not rule them. By the way, that was what the husbands had the full right to do in the Roman and Greek cultures. You'll notice what I said very clearly. They had the full right to do in the Roman and Greek cultures. I intentionally omitted one of the cultures at that time, didn't I? Which one? The Jewish culture. So he was speaking into that culture very directly, and he's saying, don't let that culture influence you in your relationships. But then he goes on to say to the husbands, but love them as Yeshua did us. Love them as Yeshua did us. Wow. How did we do this? You'll notice in the outline there are several things involved. First of all, there's sacrifice. Verse 25. He gave himself up for her. He gave his life for her. It has to do with setting aside one's own interests. Philippians 2, remember? Although in very nature God, he set all that aside in order to become human. Or Hebrews 2. He went through our kind of suffering as a human so that he could commiserate as well as mediate on our behalf. Setting aside our own interests, that involves sacrifice. It also involves service. Verses 26 and 27 tell us. Service. In other words, elevating her, making sure she reaches her full potential and achieves her goals and is fulfilled. Making sure she becomes all that she can be. Again, very interestingly, the Greek here, the word for present literally means beside standing. In other words, standing beside. Beside standing is what that verb means. Catch that? What does it mean to stand beside someone? You're on a par and equal with that someone. All the way through, the vocabulary is clear. From the mutual submission all the way through the instruction to the husband. Verse 27. In this way, he's able to present the Messianic community as a bride in all her glory to himself, without stains or wrinkles of any kind, spotless, and with no imperfections. Again, quoting the commentator I mentioned before, there is no spot of disfigurement or wrinkle of age. That's, end quote, that's the way in which this presentation is made. In other words, the presentation is made in such a way that the person being presented is unflawed, undiminished. Now, this kind of service, husband to wife, stood in stark contrast to the culture of that time. Those were times of marriages usually of convenience or commerce or class. And now he's telling them, those who might be influenced that way, in a marriage you don't tolerate, you showcase. You showcase the other. Verse 26, the verse before, is very interesting. It describes the washing by water. A lot of people miss this. We as a Jewish community should not miss this. Why? Because we know about washings by water. And in fact, going through the mikveh was one of the things that the bridal couple did before marriage. So it's a reference to that, in keeping with the image of the bride here. The result of this process, the verse tells us, depending on the translation, is that the wife is to be presented radiant or complete. In other words, the husband is to make sure that she's seen in all her glory with no imperfections as he stands beside and perhaps even behind her to let her shine. This involves, as you can see, verses 28 to 30, selflessness. In the same way, husbands ought to love their own wives as they love their very own bodies. A man who loves his wife actually loves himself. No one ever hates, let me change that. No one in their right mind ever hates his own body, but faithfully feeds and takes good care of it, just as the Lord does for the Messianic community. The Old English has a wonderful term for this. Nourishing. Nourishing and caring for the other person. That's what's being described here. The Old English has another good term for this. Cherishing. Paying as much attention to her as to yourself, he's saying. As to your own body. Again, in stark contrast to the culture of that day. And the goal or the objective, it's verse 31. Some translations have it one flesh. So that the two will be as one. It's a wonderful image of identity and oneness, of equality, not hierarchy. It, in a sense, reflects back to Genesis chapter 2, when God describes the woman in relationship to the man. He describes her, and this is what the Hebrew says literally, as a suitable help, in other words, fits in very well, as a suitable help of equal standing. Got it? It's the way it was from the beginning, and so it's intended to be, and reinforced here. And then a word of summary for both spouses, verse 33. Just so the readers wouldn't lose the main point of what he's saying in the images and examples and illustrations, the rabbi repeats the crux of what he's driving at. You know, we're always asking, what's the bottom line? The rabbi says, okay, so here's the bottom line. Mutual submission in a marriage means husbands, love your wives. He's already unwrapped that for you. Wives, respect your husbands. Love. Love in the overall context of the biblical text is something that's unconditional. It's not based on performance, nor is it based on prerequisites. Love in the biblical context is understanding and undemanding. It's not based on expectations or on responses. In other words, it is other-driven and outer-directed. Love in the biblical and the Jewish context is both proactive and active. It's a commitment to act in such a way for the best of the other person. Now, why were wives told to respect their husbands? Well, in this particular culture, with the behavior of many husbands of that day, there was nothing that they did that would normally produce respect. And I'm tempted to say something about today's culture, but I'll leave that alone. And so the wives are reminded, despite how the husband may act, No nagging, don't be critical, don't be demeaning. Instead, esteem or hold in high regard or value highly your husband. It also has to do with not only esteem but encouragement, being supportive and building up. Therefore, he says, husbands and wives, don't misuse your position, your power, your possibilities, but submit to each other, adjust to each other, fit in with each other, not lord it over each other or one over the other. Why? Because this is to be mutual submission to people of equal status. Oh, by the way, a final note on this. This is something that must be demonstrated, but it cannot be demanded. Got it? It's something that must be demonstrated, but cannot be demanded. What if my partner isn't doing it the right way according to this text? You know the answer to that. Look, we're involved in all sorts of relationships, and being human, relationships often go sour. They have a tendency to break down and to run into problems. When they do, we don't function at our full potential, and the situations drain our energy and diminish our joy. So God has given us some important guidelines for all our relationships with each other, so we can enjoy His best in our lives and in our community. Rav will explain the principle, and then he applies it to several important areas: marriage, family, business. Those next couple you'll have to wait for until the next time when we explore those more fully. But he reminds us regarding this and other relationships. He says, don't abuse your power, don't misuse your position, don't sabotage your possibilities. God's way in all these relationships is mutual submission. So submit to each other, whether it's husband or wife, whether it's each other in the community. Subordinate your own interests and agenda and serve each other. That's what that term in text means. In all your relationships. Rather than making demands or expectations of them, respond to others' needs and adjust and fit in. Adjust to and fit in with each other. As the text begins, so let me remind you, this mutual submission in all relationships, this is the true test or sign of a Spirit-filled life. Got it? Is he coming across loud and clear? This is the real indicator not only of a godly marriage, but good relationships. Remember how it all began. A suitable help of equal status. And that's what produced what? They became as one. That should be the goal in marriage relationships, but that should be the goal in all relationships, particularly within a community such as this. Take the next minute or so to make a commitment. Or if you choose not to, don't. To go for that goal. We do so in quiet, and then we'll continue our response. Matt earlier on in the service talked in terms of responsibility to help perfect the world. What the rabbi said in his text gives us some principles for perfecting relationships. Now we look forward to that time when those relationships will in fact be perfected, as will the world. It's the time of the King of David's greater Son, and we respond in anticipation as well as affirmation. Pages 102 to 107 with the Elena. Please rise, facing Jerusalem, the direction of the ark.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשינו כגוי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם כלכנו כהם, וגורלנו כחמונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינה רוזו בגבי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו, אמת מלכנו, את בן סולתו, כך כתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום בהשם אותה אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ מתחת עינות. It is incumbent upon us to praise the Master of all, to exalt the Creator of the world, for he has made us distinct from the nations and unique among the families of the earth. Our destiny is not like theirs, our calling is our task. We bow down and acknowledge before the King of Kings that there is none like him. For he stretched forth the heavens like a tent and established the earth. Truly there is none like our Lord and King. As the Torah says, you shall know this day and reflect in your heart that it is the Lord who is God in the heavens above, and on the earth beneath there is none else. We hope, O Lord our God, to soon behold your majestic glory, when all abominations shall be removed, and all false gods shall be at an end. Then shall the world be perfected under the rule of the Lord Almighty, and all mankind shall call upon your name. For to you every knee must bow, and every tongue declare that you are God. Reign over us soon and forever. May the kingdom of David's greater Son be established forever. For then shall the words be fulfilled, the Lord shall be king forever, and the Lord shall be king over all the earth. On that day the Lord shall be one, and his name one. V'neimar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz. Bayom hahu yihye Adonai echad, u'shemo echad.
You may be seated. That is everyone but Gary.
I don't get to see.